Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we zoom past two defenders, pump fake, and fire off our list of the top 5 LeBron James commercials. Adjust your headband and toss some chalk in the air because this podcast came to play.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, where we simplify the world of marketing for humans. I'm Shad Conley, and with me is my co-host, Patrick King Podcast Jebber. How's it going, Patrick?
Look, Shad, I'm not supposed to be here. And yet, here I am.
You are King Podcast. It's amazing. I don't know how it happened.
If there's one thing I could tell everyone, is that, look, you don't want to be me. You want to be better than me.
That's deep and original. Not stolen from a LeBron James commercial at all.
No, not at all. I mean, we're talking about LeBron James commercials today, so maybe they influenced my thoughts.
A totally unrelated coincidence, right?
Totally unrelated. So, I have a question for you, Shad.
Let's hear it. What is it?
You ready? Today, I'm going to open this up. The first question of the day is, how would you rank these 10 marketing prominent sports figures in terms of their commercial work? Okay?
Ooh.
We got, obviously, LeBron James. We've got Steph Curry. We've got Kobe Bryant, Tiger Woods, Roger Federer, Serena Williams, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Danica Patrick, and Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Some big names there. Some big names in the commercial world. So this was tough. So my top 5 are Stephon Curry, Danica Patrick, Tiger Woods, LeBron James, Peyton Manning. I think in that order. The lower half I have Tom Brady, Kobe Bryant, Roger Federer, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Serena Williams. And a lot of those are interchangeable in terms of order. The biggest thing there is probably Brady and Kobe Bryant are two pretty big sports stars, or were for a while, who I never thought were all that good in commercials. They just kind of left me a little cold. And the other ones are just, Roger Federer makes massive amounts of money on commercials, but I think because he's Swiss, he doesn't have like a strong, recognizable personality that I could think of. Especially the top 3, Tiger Woods, LeBron James, Peyton Manning, are people who have done a lot of commercials and I think are pretty identifiable in them. And Manning in recent years has kind of been the king to me.
Well, he's definitely had a lot of them, and good commercials, I would say.
So how did you rank those?
The problem for me was I was looking at the way in which the ads used the athletes. Some of them had a difficult time because, athletes, they might have charisma in their own respective sport, but they're not great on camera most of the time. You know what I mean? So
yeah, some are like, actively bad, and then there's others who just are good when you put them in the right commercial, I guess.
Yeah. So my list, LeBron James was actually number 1 on my list. Not because I'm biased. I actually think he has the best quality commercials. I had Tom Brady and Peyton Manning as my 2 and 3. Tom Brady's commercials, he doesn't have as many good quality ones as everyone else, but the ones that he did have, I thought were fairly good.
Obviously, we have a very different view on that. I always think he seems so stiff. He's just almost like a robot in anything he's in, and it's almost worse when they try to make him be funny in any sort of way. That's just always the impression that I get. Like, he might not even be in commercials. It could just be a CGI version of him.
And I agree. I agree with you. He does come off as a little stiff. Some of them are not funny. I'll give you that. But Peyton Manning, though, I think he's right under LeBron James in terms of the quality of the commercials. And he's got a pretty good personality. It comes through on screen. And then, some of them just fall really flat. Kobe, huge start, but the commercial sucked, in my opinion.
I always thought in commercials, he was just not a good commercial personality. Kobe just kind of left you cold. He just didn't seem like he was into it. It just seemed like he was cashing a paycheck or doing what he thought he had to do. I can't remember ever seeing anything that I'm like, it's pretty good, Kobe. Looks like he's having fun.
Yeah. I always felt Tiger felt like he was always forced, but he had one of the most famous of the golfing world's commercials where he bounced the golf ball on a club for 30 seconds and then hits it in the air. And I know we talked about it on the podcast before, but...
Yeah, that was might have been my number 1 Nike commercial of all time. So I thought he had at least a unique personality, especially within the golf world. I thought he was pretty good in most stuff he did. And he did a lot of stuff, a lot of commercials.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly when you said they felt like robots. And I agree, most of them do. Even Tom Brady comes across that way in a lot of his commercials, but some more than others because they're stuck in this spot. I mean, they're athletes, they're not actors. And if they're not good on screen, then don't use them on screen. When writers understand that an athlete has a comfort level, oh, this guy, is not great on camera, so let's work this story differently. The concept has to be a little different.
And that kind of hits on, I broke down what makes an athlete good in a commercial. I kind of broke it down to like 3 things. The first one being they seem natural and relaxed when they do it, which is the thing I don't think Kobe Bryant and Tom Brady have. The second one is you have to be into it. You have to have like eagerness and energy, a sense of fun about you, or be willing to stretch outside your normal comfort zone and do things that are a little ridiculous or crazy and funny. LeBron James and Peyton Manning definitely do that. And then the third thing is what you mentioned. You have to have good commercial concepts, emphasize your strengths, character, and personality, and like help you bring that out more. If you're in something that's totally against the grain with the kind of personality athlete, it just doesn't work.
That's the biggest thing, I keep coming back to charisma, Most of the time it can carry a commercial. I'll give you an example, Roger Federer. I thought the concepts of the commercials did a good job of minimizing his acting.
He's a physical presence. Yeah, he's almost like a silent commercial character.
Yeah. Here's the thing, when I was going through these, I'll be honest, I couldn't remember all the commercials for the 10 athletes, so I had to go back and do a little research, and I basically just ranked them on the sheer interest level of the commercials. Some were bad, as you can imagine, and so I ranked them according to one simple rule: was it a good commercial? And somewhat timeless, you know what I mean? Because that's the other problem, is that a lot of the commercials were just like, ugh, really?
Yeah, commercials, they're so of their time. We talked about that on the Nike episode, that they just kind of, some of them can seem so good at the time, and then you look back on them and you're like, oh, this is kind of terrible. Just you're looking at it through a different lens. It doesn't quite stack up.
Yep.
The one thing you kind of hit on there that we'll talk about here is, I assume by your ranking, you think LeBron's a pretty strong commercial presence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he's got insanely great charisma, both on the court and on set. And I think LeBron holds his own when it comes to the commercial world. And Nike doesn't just hand out lifetime deals for everyone, and I think that they saw early on the potential in him, you know what I mean?
Yeah, even amongst this list, these are superstars, and these are people who make some of the most marketing money of anybody in sports. And you can see even some of them aren't that great. It's a rare thing to actually have that. Very few athletes have that, transcendent ability. And even amongst the best of the best in the game, just that being that prominent figure doesn't quite do it. There has to be that something more.
Yeah.
And so, looking back, when I was thinking back on LeBron's commercials, I was like, he's not that great. But actually going back and watching them and seeing the versatility, the amount of different products he's done, the different tones of the commercials, when I look back on it and actually did the work to watch them all, it was just crystal clear how he does have that, a level above most athletes.
And as his brand and story evolve, they continue to get stronger over time. You know what I mean? Because the story is better. The story just keeps getting better and better. So it's easy to tell that story in a much more impactful way.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll get to that as we make our picks coming up here, but for any athlete, how their narrative with what's going on in their sport connects to the commercials they do plays a huge role in that. Definitely comes into play. And certainly for LeBron. And you're right, he's gotten better over time.
He's like a fine wine.
He's the fine wine of commercial athletes. So in a minute, we'll share our picks for the top 5 LeBron James commercials of all time. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's sponsor is Farmers Insurance. Insurance can be confusing, overwhelming, and time-consuming. At Hire Insurance Agency, we remove the guesswork and hassle, helping you protect what matters most. We offer a wide range of auto, home, business, and life insurance policies to help you meet your specific needs. Call 844-543-3463 or visit hireinsurance.com. That's HYRE insurance.com for more information.
Let us read from the playbook, the King James playbook, and Basketball Chosen One asked the soul of the game for court vision. And it was granted to him. Can I get a layup? Layup! The Chosen One didn't ask for hops.
Coach Reverend,
He didn't ask for handles. Why did the Chosen One ask for court vision? I'm going to tell you why. Just listen. He wanted glory for the team. I feel the soul of the game coming over me.
That was an audio clip from a 2003 Nike commercial featuring a very young LeBron James. In fact, it was one of his first commercials for Nike, a brand that recently signed the superstar to a lifetime deal. It was one of many commercials for many brands that would follow in the next 14 years. But is it one of LeBron's best? We're about to tell you.
So, Patrick, we didn't mention him in the last segment here, but obviously the athlete who's widely considered the king of commercials, another king reference here, is Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, to a lot of people, is probably the best athlete in displaying that charisma, and he had just all the commercial deals. People loved his commercials. You know, looking at it now, do you think LeBron is in the same league as Michael Jordan when it comes to commercials?
It's funny because they're compared so often. They're both larger than life, both on and off the basketball court. The one thing is, I think LeBron has better natural acting abilities than Michael Jordan. You know, I love Michael Jordan, but he wasn't
What about Space Jam?
Well, I'm mainly basing that statement on Space Jam. Look, we all make mistakes, right? But yeah, if you go back and you actually look at the commercials, they actually have a lot of similarities in the style of commercials that they run by design. You know, and Nike's not stupid. They know those similarities and they're playing off of that, obviously, because it worked for Michael Jordan too, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, both in terms of LeBron's career on the court and marketing-wise, how he just lives in this shadow of Michael Jordan, you know? Like he's kind of following the template as far as commercials go that Michael established and did so well. Even I would say LeBron's expanded upon it now that marketing's become a different beast for athletes in this age. But it's hard to say right now because we're in the LeBron James era. But, you know, looking back on some of those Jordan commercials, I'm like, I remember at the time loving them, but, you know, looking back on them, I'm like, it's not that great. And that might just be a result of the passage of time, you know, looking at it through today's eyes. So I don't know, maybe in 10 years, you kind of have to wait till we're a little bit more removed from peak LeBron to give it proper judgment. But, you know, at this moment in time, it seems like they're standing almost as equals in terms of their commercial work and, you know, the prominence of it and the effectiveness of it. The difference being the same thing it'll always be. Michael did it first and established the template.
Being real, that's the unfortunate side effect of being a great athlete is you're always going to be compared to previously great athletes. And LeBron, naturally people compare him to Michael Jordan. It's sort of unfortunate. At the same time, it's kind of what drives athletes. I'm sure at some point when he was little, he was like, I want to be just like Michael Jordan, you know? That's what drives you to, you know, be better. But then at some point you're like, yeah, I don't want to live in his shadow anymore. I'm my own person and I'm going to be better, you know? And that's what he's striving for now.
Yeah, and I think I'll talk about this a little more as I get into my picks, but it's so interesting how Jordan has become a part of LeBron's narrative. After seeing Michael Jordan, people were so anxious to have another athlete of that caliber who transcends sports and marketing and worldwide attention and recognition. People were just clamoring for that, and they were ready to toss that crown on somebody. And LeBron's got that crown placed on his head, and he's lived up to it. The craziest thing for me is just, you know, all this hype and pressure on somebody from like age of 19, and then he lives up to it in both the sports sense and marketing sense. It's crazy. Anyway, that being said, we'll get into our list here in a minute. We'll just say, picking your top 5, was that hard or was that easy for you, Patrick?
It wasn't that difficult. The big thing is they're great at showcasing his brand. As the hometown hero, the guy who has incredible values, as well as basketball talent. And it's that story that's been gradually played out in the commercials. It was very easy to pick 5 of the best, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I felt the same way too. I normally struggle with these lists. They keep me up at night. This one wasn't too bad for me. I think we're probably going to I'd imagine we'll have a lot of overlap because I think the best of the best are pretty apparent. And I'll also say the majority of my picks are Nike commercials. I don't know if it's the same for you or not, but not really super surprising since, no brand uses athletes in commercials better than Nike. They just kind of have that process down. They know how to do it and how to tell their stories.
I agree with that.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Well, appropriately, my number 5 pick is The Beginning. This is a 2007 Nike commercial. And this would have been when LeBron was coming off the season where the Cavs surprised everybody and made it to the NBA Finals, only to be swept by the San Antonio Spurs. 4 games, it was over. But it was the beginning of stage 2 for LeBron. He got there and reached that higher level. So it was also where we saw a shift in the marketing narrative. He went from this anointed, chosen player, will he live up to the hype, to somebody who could begin to feel criticism and adversity and, raised expectations. So in this commercial, we get this series of kids gradually growing up, dribbling a basketball, and, echoing that in the background are pictures of LeBron growing up as a kid, as this, growing kid is driving to the hoop, this story of his life. But it also has this great message to it where it starts off with the line, "You don't want to be LeBron James." This is narrated by LeBron James, mind you. Mm-hmm. And, it ends with, "You don't want to be me, you want to be better than me," which is what you referenced in our intro here. I thought it was a great commercial. Talking about that Michael Jordan, LeBron James shadow, I translated that message to be LeBron saying, "I don't want to be Jordan. I want to be better than Jordan." So it kind of hit on that narrative. And like I was talking about, what a key part Jordan has been in the LeBron story. So that was my number 5.
That's a good pick. And it falls in line with that story of him being an inspiration, because I think that's part of his brand. And I think that does that so well. You don't want to be me. You want to be better than me. The ones that are the most successful is where, you're inspiring others to do great things as opposed to just, it's all about me, I mean, sometimes it is, but it doesn't always have to be. And I think that's where his excel. That's
a great point. Definitely a recurring theme in my picks and probably your picks too. So what's your number 5?
So my number 5 is the Nike Chalk. This commercial includes a very defining piece of LeBron's brand. And, I keep coming back to this story of him. Him throwing the chalk in the air before the game is something most people identify with him. And this commercial has intrinsically linked the two of them together and is part of his story. So I think it's a really great commercial in the lineage of telling his story.
Yeah, that's a good one. Sits just outside my top 5. Considered it, didn't quite make it on the list. But what I really liked about that commercial is how it transposes LeBron, throwing the chalk in the air before games with these images of teachers and barbers and other working class professionals getting chalk on their hands or throwing chalk up, which is a really interesting idea. And going back to that idea of, he's just the athlete of the people kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. And a lot of similarities to that and my number 4, quite a few black and white LeBron James ads. And my number 4 is also one of them. That's the 2016 Nike commercial, Come Out of Nowhere. And we know this one, we've talked about it on the Speaking Humans site. What I really like about this commercial is how LeBron's narration juxtaposes our story with his story. And this is what you were talking about before. He's doing this narration where he's talking about you. These things happen to you, but he's really telling his story. And I think that while he's talking about you and inspiration and overcoming adversity and coming out of nowhere, you have these parallels that connect the viewer to LeBron's life very effectively. And it's just a great inspirational spot with a great message to all the underdogs out there. So I really like that one.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's actually number 2 on my list. This is the thing about that come out of nowhere ad is that it's where we get to the nitty gritty of LeBron's brand, that intense, inspirational, moving part of his story. Of course, Nike's behind the ad because like we said, it makes sense. And yeah, they're wearing Nike clothing, but it's about the message. To me, it digs deep to the heart of what drives people. It's powerful,
Yeah, definitely. So I guess we both agree that's a great one. Number 4 and number 2. What's your number 4, Patrick?
My number 4 is Sprite, the hashtag #WannaSprite, or some people call it the super influencers. And it may seem like a totally nonsensical and comedic choice because of all of my ads have this sort of story to tell. But I actually think there's a lot more to this commercial under the surface. In it, LeBron showcases that he won't just do what the product sponsor wants him to do. No matter what the cue card says, I won't tell you to drink Sprite. And then they say, come on, LeBron, say it. And he says, no. And here's where I read more into the commercial. LeBron is defying the sponsor in a whimsically planned way, right? I mean, they plan this commercial, but it parallels his brand. He doesn't do what people tell him to do. He's a leader, and he doesn't tell people to do things. He leads you where you should go. He won't tell you to drink Sprite. He'd ask you, do you want a Sprite? And that's the genius of this ad. It helps build and continue to tell his story that is just, it's funny,
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's a good one too, because that also it's kind of a meta commercial, right? Where they have the beginning begins with like a reel where it's not actually just a commercial with him talking to the camera. You're seeing the off-camera stuff.
Yeah.
You're seeing it from a skewed point of view.
Like I said, his commercials have gotten better because he does a great job of not being a product spokesman without putting his own spin on it.
It's also a really great example of all those things I was talking about, the criteria for what makes an athlete good in a commercial. He's totally relaxed and natural in that commercial. You know what I mean? He does not seem stiff at all. He's doing this thing and he is into it. He's cool with it. He's having fun with it. You don't see that cashing a paycheck burden on his face at all. You know what I mean? He does that. That is actually a really good example of him just kind of like, let's go in there, let's do this, and having fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's very relaxed in that commercial. And I think that's what makes it so good.
Even hearing you talk about it makes me think it's better than it was. Didn't make my list, but it's definitely a good one.
Quiet and action. Let's get one thing straight. I never tell you to drink Sprite, even if I was in a commercial for Sprite, which I am, or you were watching it, which you are. I wouldn't tell you to drink it, no matter what that cue card says.
Bron, man, say it.
No. Even if you just eating tacos with extra hot sauce, and you were holding an extra cold Sprite, and for some reason, you're waiting for me to tell you to drink it, I still wouldn't tell you to drink that thirst-quenching Sprite. Even if this were a metaphor about Sprite, and I was talking about Sprite, and little Yachty here was paid by Sprite to write lyrics about Sprite. I still wouldn't tell you to drink Sprite. And even if all these cool influencer people were holding one, I still wouldn't tell you to drink a cool, crisp, refreshing lemon lime Sprite. I'd ask you, you want a Sprite?
So what's next on your list, Shad?
Number 3 on my list is I'm also kind of hitting the comedy beat here. The 2006 Nike commercial Swimming Pool. And this was part of a series of ads where LeBron was playing a family of different characters. So he's the grandfather character. He's himself. He's also this smooth brother who wears suits and sunglasses and, is into his hair. And he's even a little kid via the magic of special effects. This is a weird spot. They were all kind of weird. They were going for that funny thing, but it's a great example of LeBron really carrying the load with his charisma and energy. Not many athletes could do what he does on this commercial and do it well. He gets into these characters and you could tell he's really into it. Showing off his acting skills a little bit, but most of all, you just get the energy, you get the fun, and he just seems game for it throughout. I think it's one of his best. It shows him doing something, really stretching a bit. And like him on a lot of those early Cleveland Cavaliers teams, he's just putting the whole thing on his back and making it work.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice. It definitely falls outside of the theme of my picks, but I do like it for the reasons that you mentioned it. I know a lot of people loved him, but I think that's part of the beauty of the variety of commercials he's done is that, some of them are great and some of them are good and some of them are strange little things like the puppet commercial with Kobe Bryant. That, in my opinion, is probably the worst. But
I agree.
like I said about Michael Jordan in Space Jam, everybody makes mistakes. They're not all going to be great.
A lot of people wouldn't classify Space Jam as a mistake. And, LeBron has been in talks to do like a Space Jam reboot.
Of course. God.
So what's your number 3, Patrick?
My number 3 is from Samsung. This is the one where he's with his family in the entire commercial. And again, it's a continuation of branding his person and what he values outside of the basketball court, his family. But what's so great about this commercial is something that we've talked about before on the podcast, the ability to advertise without advertising. The commercial shows the product, but in an extremely natural way. They're using the Samsung Galaxy to document parts of their lives, and it feels very fluid in the storytelling of the commercial. You're not showing me the specs and the features of the phone. You're showing me this iconic man and his family having real moments. They just happen to be using this product, which seems very easy to use and part of their life.
Yeah, that's a great one and very smart approach by Samsung with that commercial. Not just we have LeBron James and not just using him as a pitch man, giving this glimpse inside of his life with these really well put together commercials, which I think it touched me for the same reason. It was just showing this different side of LeBron, using the product naturally, put together in this fun, good vibe where you got a great soundtrack by Raphael Sadiq playing in the background. Just kind of makes you smile, makes you like LeBron even more. I don't know if this is really his life, if they pose these things, but it feels authentic, right? And you believe it because you feel like that's the kind of guy he is. So it's just really well done. It was a really smart play, I feel like, by Samsung. Sneaky good commercials.
Yeah. Man, I love that commercial. Like you said, sneaky genius on Samsung's part. We've talked about it before, you're telling the story in a more natural way.
And I think too, brands beyond like your sports brands who get athletes all the time of that caliber, I think for like a Samsung, the initial thing is we get this athlete, let's pound the athlete home, you know what I mean? Let's have him talking directly to the camera about this phone, as opposed to doing something more natural like this.
Better storytelling at its core, you know what I mean?
Oh, without a doubt. So I guess you already hit on your number 2. Obviously that led into my number 2. Did you have anything more to say about that one, or do you want to just go right into our number 1s, which I'm going to say there's a 98% chance it's the same one?
Probably. I'm pretty sure we did. We had to have picked the same one.
Yeah, and I even thought when I was picking it, I'm like, there's a good chance we'll both pick the same one, but it's just so far and away the number 1. So my number 1 is the Together ad from Nike from 2014.
Yes.
That's the one, huh?
Yes, that's the one.
Without a doubt. It's like a great movie that might even bring some tears to your eyes. It's just that good.
Absolutely. Tell me why you picked it. I'm sure we'll both have different talking points for sure.
Well, for those who haven't seen it or don't know, one, go look it up and watch it because it's like a 2-minute long video that's really good in its extended format, I guess, or purest format. This is another black and white spot. Nike knows that black and white just adds so much weight to things, especially within sports. It's got this great instrumental score. This is 2014, so this is right after LeBron came back to Cleveland from Miami. So it's kind of the beginning of the 3rd chapter in LeBron's career. The return and the emergence of that new narrative, the redemption. Let's win one for Cleveland here. So this one, it has LeBron giving a talk to the team in the huddle that translates to the crowd, where people just start joining the huddle. And then it's in the streets, everybody just coming together, and they're all chanting together. And it's just got such a heavy weight to it, such an inspirational feel to it. It emphasizes that LeBron-Cleveland connection and the importance to that, which for anybody who has lived or lived in the area, you just know how meaningful that is and how important that is and how it's always hung over LeBron through all that decision stuff and everything like that. It's just transcendent. It shows the people and LeBron, athlete and common man uniting in this kind of deep, meaningful, and inspirational way. And it's like a great sports movie that you've watched. At the end, you feel like you've been through something. So, a fantastic commercial. What'd you like about it, Patrick?
Everything that you just said, because that's the easy way out. But, this ad is the continuation of that storytelling and follows LeBron on his journey back to his city where the team defies the odds and works together to bring a championship. It's like you said, it's at the end of every great sports movie. And it demonstrates a devotion to his roots. He is that guy. He has this ability to bring people together, hence the name Together, to unify a city that was, very clearly broken after his departure. Everybody had that hope. That's a tough thing to do, and I think he's accomplished bringing people back together at the very highest level. It's about building that brand and making people believe. Hope and belief can carry you a long way. By the way, you can have hope if you wear Nike.
But only if you wear Nike.
But only if you wear Nike. But, great brands recognize the impact that athletes have when they inspire you to achieve your dreams. That's the greatest avenue that any brand can take. And Nike's done a really great job they tell these stories so wonderfully that you feel like part of this story, right? Together. It's not just the athletes, it's the community. It's powerful. For sure.
Yeah, it's like the highest level of that connection that's been part of that narrative since the beginning. LeBron to the everyday person takes it to the new level, or where it's at now. There's another commercial that didn't make my list but came close that was called Training Day, which shows him like in Miami and he's training and he's got a whole bunch of people are riding bikes with him and running with him and he's happy to have everybody there, and that's who he is, or part of this commercial narrative that they've constructed where he's just this guy who brings people together and wants to bring people together. And I think that's genuine of him as a person. I think that's part of his personality they just have, honed in on and brought out more in these commercials. It's never more present than it is in this commercial.
That's true. That is true. Well, and that's where we said early on, the story only gets better. Every commercial gets incrementally or exponentially better because the story is better every time they tell it, because it's like you're seeing a sequel, but a good sequel.
A good sequel, right?
Yeah.
That's true. And that's, maybe that's what's made his commercials get so much more interesting. Because even you look back, Jordan never had the narrative he had. Jordan was just this great player who kept winning, which is good. That's fantastic. But to leave, to kind of score in a city, to come back, redeem yourself, then actually win the championship is such a crazy good story that it just, adds so much to everything. And the marketing just kind of soaks that in and has gotten better as his career's gone on because of it.
And he's great at branding himself. Because in the end, right, it's all going to come back to that athlete. And LeBron, you could tell he's a good person. You know what I mean? There have been great athletes who aren't great people, and it's not believable. No matter what kind of light they cast on them, they're never going to outshine the fact that they do bad things, whereas he's a role model, for everyone.
And even, taking that Together ad, the power of his presence, he's probably only on screen for like a third of the commercial. His voice is narrating a lot of it, but he's such a powerful presence at the core of it.
Yeah.
That's when you can tell the confidence of the commercial makers and the guy in the center of the ad, where he doesn't have to be front and center every minute, but it's kind of based around him and his spirit is there the whole time. You know what I mean? He's like controlling the commercial without even being on screen.
Yeah. And very defining moments on screen, that shot at the end is like probably one of the best visual shots I think I've probably ever seen in a commercial, especially a sports commercial, where he's in the middle there and everybody's raising their hands up. All the people are surrounding him. Just an amazing visual image. And it's just a great representation of how he's a leader and he's just a central figure to this community.
It delivers on all levels and it's shot beautifully and it's got a great score to it too that just kind of gets to you.
We're going to grind for this city, Shad. They're going to support us, but we've got to give it all back to them.
It's good stuff. It's good material. That concludes our top 5. Same number 1 shows you how good that commercial actually is.
Yeah, so LeBron, if you're listening, come on. You could do an interview with us on speakinghuman.com anytime. We'll be happy to have you.
What would be interesting to hear is get LeBron's take on what his top 5 of the commercials he's done.
Oh, that would be great. Now that we're just spitballing this, it would be really cool to hear his ideas behind how these stories came to be,
I agree, though. It'd also be good to ask him, what's your insight level when you do these commercials? Are they pitching you ideas and you're saying yay or nay or adding something to them? Are they coming from ideas you have? How does that whole process work? I'd like to hear it. See how the athlete level of involvement.
Well, here's to hoping. And on that note, let's get our final nugget of human wisdom.
All right, Patrick, for today's human wisdom, one of the big things we see frequently with athletes in commercials is the overcoming adversity narrative. It's a highly effective approach because it registers with everyone in some way. And it's even applicable with highly successful superstars like Michael Jordan and LeBron James, who are the sources of our closing quotes here today. First quote comes from Michael Jordan in Nike's 1997 failure commercial. "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." The second quote comes from LeBron James' first Instagram post after winning the 2016 NBA Finals. "They said you lost a step, wasn't explosive as once was. The best days was in the rear view. Questioned your drive, your leadership, your commitment. You don't have killer instinct. Going back home is the worst mistake in your career. You got the coach fired, players traded. Won't work between him and Kyrie. Him and Kev won't work. Love your teammates too much. There's no way he can deliver a championship in his hometown, etc., etc., etc. But guess what? That's none of my business. Hashtag strive for greatness. Hashtag this one is for the land. Hashtag put some respect on my name." Just some food for thought as you think about how an adversity narrative can work in your brand marketing, with or without a star athlete.
And that's human wisdom for you. Now, when you were putting that nugget of human wisdom together, was it hard work?
Yeah, Patrick, a lot of people said you'll never get that human wisdom. You'll never be able to do it. Patrick does it way better. You can't. But I didn't let that stop me. I dropped that nugget of human wisdom.
That's overcoming adversity.
Probably the best example ever of overcoming adversity, right?
Yeah. Well, you have this toughness on the podcast.
I had to dig deep.
That's cool.
Fun talking to LeBron. Hopefully, he'll use this to motivate him now to win the championship. Another one for the land.
You know, maybe, just maybe. So that's it for today's episode. You can find current and past episodes of the podcast on speakinghuman.com. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Google Play.
Tweet us with your thoughts on today's show and let us know what we got right or wrong with our list of top LeBron James commercials. At speaking_human on Twitter. That's at speaking_human on Twitter. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Speaking Human. Catch you then, humans.
Speaking human.
City, we got to do it for them, dog. We got to do it for Cleveland. They're waiting on us. What we do tonight. Here we go, right here. Let's get it. It's all us. Cleveland on 3. 1, 2, 3.